Hey guys, Whitney here. Welcome. We're going to give it a couple minutes for everybody to join, and we're also going to give it a couple minutes to make sure my video sticks with us today. I might be the blank black screen, which I'm not excited about. But anyways, for those of you who have not joined us live before, welcome to the Passive Investing Made Simple show. I'm Whitney Elkins-Hutten. I'm the Director of Investor Education here at PassiveInvesting.com. This is a live show that we do on a weekly basis to help you deep dive into various topics around passive investing and to help you gain not only knowledge, but put the knowledge into action, more importantly. So you can go into your next investment with confidence. And before I get too far, today is going to be one of those days that we're not going to talk stats. We are not going to, we probably won't even mention the word real estate. So I'm kind of super excited about this. But anyways, I have a little teaser, but before we get too far down the rabbit hole, be sure to register at PassiveInvestingWithWhitney.com for future masterclass sessions and to check out our open deals. And if you'd like, jump on the phone with me, schedule time with me, and we can talk about which of our deals lines up with your goals. Anyways, to kick off today's show, I wanted to bring in a very special guest, David Weaver with the Forgotten Art Project. And guys, I had the pleasure of talking with David a few weeks ago on his podcast, and I'm so excited because just how he approaches business and decision-making. He works with investors, he works with business owners. It's just amazing. I think you guys are really going to resonate with what he has to say today. David, just take a brief moment to introduce yourself and the Forgotten Art Project.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. It's so weird. I can't see anybody. Is that normal? Like I can only see me and you. Is that part of the process?
Geez. It's probably the view. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know. Okay.
We're in webinar mode.
Everyone's here. Okay, cool. So my name is David Weaver, and I am a coach. I work with business owners and dad. I have two little girls. They're 6 and 9. And I've been married for 15 years, and I love spending time in the outdoors. And I absolutely love coaching and getting to work with people, every day on helping them create a business and a life that they love.
Excellent. Well, David, most people that are here today are either passive investors or potential passive investors. They're interested in investing in real estate, commercial real estate, and then from a passive standpoint. They don't want to be the operators, and that brings brings up kind of two different struggles that I see with investors. One, they're making that transition from either being their own owner operator. Maybe they've had real estate in their portfolio before, and they're just like, man, I need to fire Home Depot, I need to fire my property manager, I need to make this all passive. Or they just have a higher and better use in their job. Their time's more well spent there, and then they're getting to the point like, I'm handing over my hard-earned money to somebody that's going to run the operations for this asset on my behalf. And that's a little nerve-wracking, especially when we're talking about inflation and recession, all the talks about a recession. I spend quite a bit of time educating these investors on the different investment fundamentals, and in addition to the hard stats of what's happening in today's environment and what investment's the right one. However, I feel a lot of investors are still stuck. That's why I wanted to bring you on so we could talk about some of the, kind of the less sexy ways of making an investment decision. And actually, I say that less sexy, and it really is probably the fundamentals that we need to get to, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. It's like we don't often take the time to slow down to really look at the things that are really most important to us. And that is one of the fundamentals that makes it really challenging to make good decisions, because we're so busy, but then if we take the time, so we feel like we can't take the time to slow down, but if we took the time to slow down, then it would make the busyness easier. That's kind of a fun process.
I love how you put that business and busyness,
yeah,
kind of they're the same word.
Yeah,
imagine that. Guys, if you're listening to me on audio and didn't see my face there, that was like sarcasm at its best. So let's dive in here. Like, what are some of the things that people should start doing and stop doing whenever they're looking to get, make better investment decisions?
Yeah, let me share my screen here and let's take a look. I've got some things that I think would be valuable to share. Oh, not that button. Sorry. That button. There we go. So I put together like 7 things that I think are really important. And the first one, it seems so obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people I talk to who just don't know exactly what they want. And really not having that clarity of where you're headed is like the fundamental problem that stops us from making good decisions. So like what is the actual vision that we have for our life and our business? And not just, we tend to kind of put only a couple categories out there, but if you break it down to everything, like health, relationships, finance, career, like all of these different aspects, then that makes it completely different. And not just your own vision too, but your vision for, like, if you're married or you have a partner, there's other people in your world, what is that collaborative thing together too? Because if your dream is like spend more time together and travel and do this, then that changes like how you might make a decision over here based on if like you don't really want to travel, you just want to stay put and you want to retire, or whatever it looks like. Looking at those different aspects for yourself and then with the people who are most important to you in your world as well.
I love this. There's my family and I, we go through process. Well, okay. First of all, my brain is just flooding with all kind of like things I can add in here. Let me just like couch it that way. But I really love this because I feel for me, I might have made the process too complicated. I'm a planner. I love doing this, right? My husband, not a planner. He was like, if it can't be done in like 60 seconds, please don't ask me. But I'm out. And my daughter is very art driven. And so I had to come up with a different process to incorporate their ideas into our, like, what do they really want? My daughter, we stretch out like a bunch of butcher paper on the floor. And I go, okay, what do you want when it comes to the experiences you want to have? Where do you want to go? What do you want, like, with our travels? How do you want to give back? Right. Mm-hmm. And so I have her draw out all these things, and like it just opens the world for her. I get to understand what she really wants. And she's 10, right? I love it because I know you and I were talking about incorporating this type of process with our kids. My husband, I ask, what do you want? And it's like, whoop, stone wall. And it's not that he doesn't want to answer the question. It's just, it's hard to sit down with this. And so I'm curious, do you have anything to share? Because this is such a simple question, yet it's so difficult to answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of my favorite questions with this is, I have a tool that I use with all my clients, and we start with this. It's like an assessment. You go through and you kind of look at, okay, well, where am I currently at in these different areas? But then the last part, which I think is the most valuable, is you say, what would this area of my life look like as a 10? Like, scale of 1 to 10. Like what? And then you go through all of the things and just imagine what it would be like as a 10, because how often do we do that? We don't like go there to even imagine it. But I think that is a really, really useful starting place to help create clarity on where you want to go.
I love that, right? Because I know for me, like when I say, okay, what do I want this week and how am I going to improve my health? I think very tangible, what's near and close, what can I get done in like a week or 2 or 3 or maybe like a month? Like, what does it look like as a 10? I'm writing that down because that's huge. You kind of future think, but you don't have a time bound on it. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, what's the next step of the process?
Yeah. So just so everyone knows, at the bottom, I kind of put in stars, like if you want action steps to take away and like go do stuff today, they're right at the bottom there on each slide. So write that stuff down. So next, what is actually most important to you? This is an interesting one because we're really good at shoulding.
Should all over yourself.
Yes, what we think should be most important based upon outside pressure from our family, from our friend, from whatever, from how we were raised. But how often do we actually sit down and go like, no, okay, forget all that. Like, what is actually really most important to me, and what is actually really there? What's currently really there? And I'm sure you've all heard of core values before. It's an interesting thing because I think a lot of times what we consider core values are actually like kind of aspirational values. Typically, they're like, oh yeah, like I kind of want that thing to be, but it's not really there. And so I think if we can kind of strip away that aspirational aspect and just actually look at, well, what is there and what is most important to me. And so like in doing that, you can look at different areas like, where am I spontaneously inspired to take action? Like I don't have to have somebody tell me to do it. Where am I most organized in my life? Where do I typically spend money? Like those are the things that we actually value that are there typically when you see these patterns of different cross sections there. So yeah, taking the time to like sit down, think about what is really most important to me.
So I've got a couple of questions here. So what if, you talked about aspirational values and just like, maybe indulgent, maybe not. If somebody really wants to change in an area, what is there a process that you take them through to maybe see, to kind of test the waters on that aspirational value and see if it's something they really should take on? Or like,
Yeah,
how do you rule it in or rule it out is what I'm kind of getting to.
yeah, and I don't know that you need to rule it in or out, but if there's a specific area that you want to improve in, great. That's like a separate thing is what I'm trying to say. Like what your values are, they're already there. They're already visible. You just have to look and see what's going on. But then things that you want to improve, like that's a totally different story. That's like, okay, we're going to go through whatever process, and it's all, typically very individual on how to get there because everybody operates differently. And we're not all the same. So I can't give you like oh yeah, just do this, 1, 2, 3, boom, you're there. I do know like Atomic Habits is a cool book.
James Clear, love it.
Yeah. And like, that's just a glimpse into like the possibility of going that direction. But the point here is, for what I'm trying to make is, where those aspirational values also might be shoulds that we feel like we should get here.
Got it.
But what's actually just there?
What if you have two spouses or two partners?
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm going with this, don't you? That their values kind of collide and not in a good way.
Yes. That is really, man, this
You're
topic.
Like, how much time do we have?
Yeah, I'm like, we're going to go deep.
Okay.
So
maybe we stick a pin in that, but I mean, that's a real thing, right?
It's a real thing. Everybody has their own unique set of values, and we all are operating by it. So in recognizing your partner's values and knowing what they are and having them understand yours, that is going to allow, and not creating judgment. That's the hardest thing for us to do as a human being, is like, oh, your values you don't value what I value. Oh, like you're wrong, or what, we make wrongness and judgment out of that. But really, like when it's our partner, especially, if we can open up and respect that, like, okay, this is what their values are. So how can I speak to them? How can I love them in a way that speaks through their values? Because I really care about this person. That's where it can really open up possibility.
And I think it's an important question to answer because, sometimes I talk to investors and you can see that tension, right? One investor is like, I really want to invest passively for our family and create that income and, provide for the family, and my spouse isn't on board. And I think this is a great part of that decision-making process to bring people to the table, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, I don't want to belabor the point, but I'll put myself out there. For the longest time, everybody that's here, that has been here for a while, knows my husband has a mountain biking addiction. And I say that lightly, like I joke around it in jest, but I really thought that's what it was. But when we sat down and did our values, that's his leisure value. And I was like, oh, I thought you were just like this person who disappeared on the weekend went mountain biking. No, he's expressing his value of leisure. And like for me, that manifests very differently because I want adventure, but I want to do it with other people. So like, it looks like but I love what you say there, because we had to come to mutually respect each other's value. We thought we were expressing the same thing, but we weren't. And when we could realize that, now we can kind of come to the table and build like a stronger life together.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, cool. Next one is to really think big picture. So being proactive versus reactive. Like, will this even matter in 6 months? Like, so much of the time when we're like, I don't know what to do, and we're getting stressed out and all these things are going on. If we just zoomed out for a minute, we'd be like, oh, this is not a big deal. And if I think about like what I want a year from now, that probably is going to make that decision a lot easier. And if on top of that, you have your vision clearly defined in all these different categories, boom, that makes it much easier as well. And then I think slowing down yet again to take a little bit of time to say, how do I want to be remembered? Like at my funeral, what do I want people to say? If I had unlimited time and resources, what would I do? There's this great book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it's this gal, Bronnie Ware. She was a palliative nurse. So she would spend time with people in the last bit of their life. I was like, they're on their way out. And the number one regret of the dying was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And so really like lining up what we're doing against that can make decision making so much easier.
That just kind of sits.
Mm-hmm.
I do like, living a life true to yourself, right? I think that's huge. And I think that's for me, like an aspiration. I feel like that's a question you have to ask over and over and over again. I feel like that ball is it's like a goalpost. Like it's constantly moving with each goal that you attain, right? Mm-hmm. And especially, I want to also bring it back to like, what a lot of investors are struggling with now with making a decision on different investments to go into. And I really like it here. Like, will this matter in 6 months? I mean, I have conversations with people, they're looking at 3 different investments and there's a 1% IRR difference between the 3 or 1% pref for difference between the 3. And really over the long term, there's like an opportunity cost if you didn't take action now, if you didn't make a decision now. There's an opportunity cost there. So I kind of, take that statement and kind of flip it on its head a little bit, is like, what's the difference if you decided not to make a decision now and made it 6 months from now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it. It's the same thing, because it's long-term thinking and being proactive about it and not just reacting to the immediate situation.
Love it.
Okay, cool. This is like one of my favorite questions. And I think to your point of continuing to ask this question again and again and again, and like figure out what that means for you and where that takes you in your life. Because like, let's say you have 3 different deals and they're all relatively the same, but this one's going to consume like a lot of your time and energy. But this one is maybe not as big of a payout, but it's going to allow you to do the things that make you feel alive and have a higher quality of life. You can ask that question and you can say, hey, like, what do I want more? Do I want to make more money, or do I want to have like a good quality of life? And there's no wrong answer, but then you're at least able to make that informed decision. And this just applies to like having a good life. If you continue to ask this across all areas of your life as we get older, like, when I first started asking this question, I had a very clear answer. And then 8 years later in my first business, I'm asking this question, like, do I want to keep doing this? And like, it had shifted, and no. And so where do I want to go now? And what does that look like? And so I love it. And I think it makes such a big difference. And this question of, is this giving me energy or taking energy, is really important.
Yeah. Is it energy? Does it provide you energy, or is it an energy drain?
Yeah.
Right. I think, how do you kind of, is there a process that you work people through? I know for me, like when I've coached people, I actually have them write down all those things that are energy sucks and the things that give them energy. Do you do something like that?
Yeah. There's a couple different things. I have a workbook too that I created like specifically for this question. Because I would talk to people about it and I'd say, hey, like what makes you feel alive? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Let's figure that out. You know?
They do
And
know. They just haven't taken the time to figure that
right,
out. Write it down.
yeah. So I created a workbook. Then you can go through and like it prompts you with all these questions to like pull that out and dig that stuff out. And that's a little bit more of like a deep dive there. But then yeah, like the energy suck, giving energy, taking energy can be more like business oriented, where we're looking at, hey, what's worth it, what's not, and where can we cut things out.
Awesome. What else do we have?
Okay. Remove the brakes. This is the biggest one. This is my favorite thing in the world, which is to identify those limiting beliefs. You know, those things that we say to ourselves are like, oh, I'm never gonna, or, you know, we're operating from this place of fear typically. And if we can take a look at what those thoughts are and we can reshape those, that can become the most potent fuel possible. We can take those things that are our greatest adversary right now and make them into like our greatest weapon in moving forward. And so much of decision making is limiting belief and rooted in fear. Like if we really are honest and we think about it, we're not typically operating from what I love to help people get to, which is a place of creating from the higher level of consciousness, which is like love, joy up here, instead of like fear, shame, and guilt, which is down at the bottom on the levels of consciousness. And we actually get to use like our prefrontal cortex of our brain and not our lizard brain to make decisions. And this question, what would I love to create, is so powerful and so different than what are my goals, right?
Ooh.
You feel that difference?
I just got smacked upside the head. Wow. Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah, it's totally different. And so we have the power to shift those things. And my favorite thing that I do with my clients is take them through. We can't do it today, and it takes way too long. But to take those limiting beliefs and go through and turn them into something powerful that we can use to propel us forward.
Oh, I love it. There's a couple other questions here, like on my journey, that I would love to add here if we can. And it's reframing questions. You know, and I coach soccer, and I hear people say, I can't do this, and it's like, no. How can you, right? Like, I think Robert Kiyosaki, that was a mainstay of his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant. And that was one of the most powerful mindset shifts that I picked up from those real estate books over 20 years ago. If you ever feel yourself saying, I can't, flip it to how can I? Because now you've like entered blanks on a sheet of paper, right? And our brains don't like having blank lines, right? And now you have to fill in the blank with all the ways that you could possibly solve the problem. The other one is, I'm not good at that. And there's one word you can add to the sentence. And I learned this from Tom Bilyeu at Impact Theory. He's a huge Tony Robbins follower. And then you have to add the word at the end of the sentence, yet. So again, it like kicks your brain into like, as opposed to shutting down, right? Like going to that lizard brain, now you're bringing it back to the prefrontal cortex to figure out, okay, how can I get good at this?
Yeah.
I love those questions. They're so empowering, but the one that hits home for me, and like you guys saw my face here, if you're joining live on videos, like, what would I create? Like, yeah, like I never learned that in school.
we don't learn this stuff. I mean, and it's cool because like there is such a change in, you watch the news, you look at everything, it just feels like chaos and the world's falling apart. But there are so many things like this where we're becoming much more educated about ourselves and how we operate as human beings. And like just the simple fact of knowing that we tell stories to ourselves all day long. So we might as well tell a story we want to hear. Like that awareness right there alone, if nothing else, can dramatically transform like how you go through life and stress levels and everything.
How did this part here, the limiting belief part, operate for you? Like before kids and then now after having kids?
Good question. I think kids have opened up like parts that you just don't know are there. And they've shown me like what is possible and like what the width of the human experience can be. And I've had, well, I'll give you a great example. My youngest daughter, she's a fireball. And she used to throw mega tantrums. I don't know if any of you parents out there have dealt with tantrums. She would throw, okay, cool, yeah, you're there. Crazy ones. Like one time she threw a 2-hour tantrum because we tried to help her with her seatbelt. And she wanted to do it herself, right? And like kicking, screaming, yelling, all the stuff. And I didn't know what to do with that, like at first, right? Because your natural reaction is just to be like, what's wrong with you? I'm mad, like stop it. That's just crazy. What is happening? That's just normal. But fortunately, I was learning all this stuff and having kids and like growing through that at the same time. And so I remember distinctly one of her last like big tantrums that she had. I knew that I could choose something else. And I knew that she would be fine. And she'd be like, I'm sorry, Dad, I love you. And like, when she was done and there's nothing to do other than to be there and to have her know, I care, I'm here. And so I just sat there and I actually like smiled. I was just sitting there and she's screaming. I was just smiling like, this is great. It's going to pass. It's going to be fine. And she's going to grow out of it. So I think that's like it was a really cool experience for me to grow and learn like how I'm thinking and what my limiting beliefs are, how that can be shifted in something that could be like really not fun.
I got too many of those stories.
Yeah. See, the best thing about parenting is talking to other parents because then you're not alone.
Right? You're like, I got 10 stories for that.
Yeah. Everybody has the same thing going on in their house all across the country. Okay, next one. Be strategically selfish. So this is one of the most giving and selfless things that you can do. Because if you are not able to operate from your best place, then all the people that you think you are helping, you're not helping as well as you could if you are coming from a tired, worn out, stressed out, contracted, fear-based state. If you are coming from rested, using the front of your brain and choosing to create from love, then you're going to be much more effective at helping everybody else in your life and making decisions. I know everybody here has experienced like trying to make a decision when you're just completely wrecked and how difficult that is. So, but we know that intellectually, but then we don't back that up with action to make sure we're taking the time to do the self-care, to do the things that we know help us operate at our best. So putting that in intentionally is, I think, a really important piece of just, enjoying life, but then making much better decisions.
Awesome. So yeah, and when you start stacking them on top of each other, if you have to start with question number one, like, what do you want? Right? Mm-hmm. Because then that helps inform everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So like, what is the biggest takeaway that listeners should get from like these 7 steps?
I got one more and then I have them all listed. So we'll do that. Let's do one more. So creating space, the 80-20 rule, maybe some of you, maybe all of you have heard about this, but the Pareto principle is that, 80% of the outcomes come from 20% of what we're doing. And so just getting really ruthless about looking at our calendar, all the actions that we're actually taking and seeing what am I doing that's the thing that actually matters and what are these other things that are just being busy for the sake of being busy, but they're not actually like driving the needle forward based on the vision that we have for where we want to go. And I know and it's an ongoing process. Like I looked at last year and I was like, okay, I did all of these things and oh, cool. These 2 things did almost everything. And those 3 to 5 things over there, like I'm not going to do those anymore because they're not driving the needle forward. And so I think that's super, super valuable at just looking at what can I eliminate and take off my plate, because time is like the most valuable asset that we have.
And it's non-renewable. Once you spend it, it's gone.
Yeah.
I love this. This is like one of my like steadfast rules, the 80-20 rule. And it's really how I like transition in passive investing, because I was house hacking, I was flipping, I was, had my Airbnbs, I was doing all these different things, all in real estate. And I wouldn't call it shiny object syndrome. I was feeling like I needed to build out multiple pillars within real estate. It's almost like in the stock market, people say, I need to be diversified. I started doing that in real estate. And whenever I got down to what do I want? Why do I want it? And I started stripping out all those things and being, like you said, specifically selfish. I was like, what's helping me get my goals is investing passively. I'm able to hit my income goals. I'm able to hit my net worth income goals, my growth goals, my accumulation goals. And guess what? I get my time back at the same time, right? But I think it was hard because you mentioned it before. I'm looking at two different assets, one that I put a lot of time and effort into, and I might get a higher return, but what's the return on my time? And it was really like understanding those fundamental questions that you've laid out here. That's what, like, for me, that was my path, right? I think everybody here, that's why I wanted to cover the topic. I mean, go through David's questions, because it might help guide you in the actual true direction you want to be, like when it comes to your real estate investing goals, and honestly, just your goals in life in general.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so to sum it all up, number one, does it line up with my vision? And asking any question, and this can apply to real estate, this can apply to whatever. Does it line up to what's actually most important to me? Does it line up with how I want to be remembered long-term? Will this bring me energy or take away energy? Am I choosing it from fear or love? And have I taken the time to think about it, journal it, talk about it with somebody I respect from a well-rested state? And then finally, is this a 20% lever? And if you can say, yes to all of those things, you got a pretty good chance of that being a good decision or something that's going to serve you in the direction that you want to go.
I love it. Well, David, this has been amazing. How can people find you?
So people can find me at davidweavercoach.com. And I also, I have a 3-month deep dive where I actually do this with people. Like, we go through all these processes, and there's a lot more, and especially like the limiting belief work and all of that, that we go through. And if that's something that you are interested in and you're like, yeah, I could do these questions on my own, but I'd really like to have some help and like really dig into that and then have that, then that's something that you can take with you for, life and use that to move forward. I have it's called Creating Freedom, and I'm happy to have anybody that'd be interested, happy to talk to you about that.
Awesome. And, David, if you would just go to the chat box to everybody and, drop in your email, that would be fantastic, or how they can reach you.
I can't do it actually. For some reason, I don't have any, I can't see people and I don't have the chat.
Oh no. Okay. Well, you guys I'll put in my email, and then you guys can reach out to me and I'll connect you with David.
Okay.
Well, guys, if you have Q&A, if you have questions, be sure to drop them into the Q&A box. I would love to ask David some questions for all of those that are joining live. If you're not joining with us live, thank you so much for joining today, spending your most valuable resource, which is your time. Be sure to check out passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com so we can help connect you to figure out what investments will help you meet your real estate